Welcome to Mindfulness Manufacturing. My name is Trevor Blondeel. Spending 25 years in manufacturing, I discovered the real impact we have on turnover, communication, and the ability to manage change is how we show up. That's the essence of emotional intelligence. In each episode, we bring a guest or message to expand your skills, engage your people, and grow your organization. So let's jump in. Manufacturing. The day flies by, and sometimes our moments feel like transactions. And sometimes it's just hard to sit in your heels and actually get into a great conversation. And I have great conversations with my friend Hugh Hornsby on the show today. He has turned 10 businesses around as vice president of Everflow Supplies. And we met through the National Speakers Association as going through some leadership training. And had to have Hugh on the show here, and welcome, my friend.
Wow. Who would have ever known when we were on that boat in Austin, Texas, and going around that the two of us just happened to come by each other and became such good friends.
Yep.
And what I really loved about you, Trevor, at the time was that we started talking about some different things. You were talking about manufacturing, and I was talking about, my epilepsy and people-based businesses, and we just got talking about it. But the one thing we talked about that I really enjoyed was that you were a Think and Grow Rich guy, which I am too. I'm a big Think and Grow Rich guy, and actually, I'm very fortunate that one of my mentors is Don Green. Hopefully, Don's going to be listening to this because I'm going to send it to him, of the Napoleon Hill Foundation, and Don has really guided me in a lot of different directions. But just really. First of all, thank you for the friendship, and thanks for having me on your podcast to talk about such an important issue, which is people.
Yeah, we've had so many conversations on this, and I was like, okay, it's time to hit record. And after we're done the conversation, we should just record that and made that a podcast. So now we got you on formally. And yeah, we had a special show just dedicated to that whole Think and Grow Rich. I think when you get around people in your organization and in friendships and wherever you meet, it's good to have differences of opinion, but then it's also good to have some similarities in mindset, right? Because that's something that you, through your life and just mindset. When I think about turnaround, people that turn around businesses, I think about, sometimes private equity and just cut the costs and don't worry about the people. And so you're on the show because you do the opposite. Like, what's your magic for our listeners here? And because you taught me the whole, hey, Trevor, it's not a transaction.
And that's something that I really believe in. And believe me, I know there are transactions out there. So I know there are KPIs. I know there are transactions. There's two parts of business. There's the people part, and there's the numbers and the sales part. One of the things I realized is that everybody has a gift. Everybody. Now, they might not know it, and sometimes you have to pull it out of them, but we all have gifts. And we all have things that we've gone through in our lives that have changed certain things. I had to ask myself, at the age of 10, I started mentoring people. And, what was it that happened to me then that made me do that? And it was, I had a severe head injury, was in the hospital for about a week. And I remember coming out of the hospital. I was only 10 years old at the time. And we're in the car. I look at my mother, and she's got tears in her eyes. And I said, Mom, don't worry, it's going to be okay. And she said, Huey, I know it's going to be okay. But what I'm concerned with is that people don't really understand epilepsy as a disorder. So I just want you to know there's something that I have to tell you. And I said, what's that, Mom? She said, never let anybody hold you back, especially yourself. Now, I didn't realize at the age of 10, I just wanted her to stop crying. It was a typical 10-year-old. But what I really didn't realize that the journey that I'm on today started that moment. And, the epilepsy that I went through, the medication I went through, everything that I went through, I always said, never let anybody hold you back, especially yourself. So I started looking at people, and I found people that were different, and found people that had some disorders or, disability, whatever you want to call them. And I started helping those people. But something really happened to me at that point, Trevor, that I didn't realize till the age of 60. What I didn't realize is that we all have the ability to change our mindsets. And we all kind of get labeled coming through, whether it's high school, elementary school, college, or going into the military. Everybody's been labeled at some point. And the question is, do we believe all those people that are telling us who we are and what it is that we have the ability to do? In the ninth grade, I remember this like it was yesterday. I was walking out of my math class. Math was never my big deal. And my teacher pulled me aside and she said, you're not college material. You need to go to a special needs class. Back then they didn't call it special needs, but it's pretty much what it was.
Yeah.
And I remember what my mom said. I remember going home and saying, Mom, this is what she said. She said, but do you believe it? I said, no, I don't believe it. She said, well, then I want you to go upstairs and think about what it is that you want and realize never let anybody hold you back, especially yourself.
Yeah. And sometimes we need to get to know ourselves better. And sometimes we're the last person that we get to know. We don't spend enough time. Like, how many times have you seen someone, personally or in your work life, that just kind of get labeled in a certain area, but then so it sounds like what you're doing, Hugh, is that someone says, I like the expression of like, well, I'm not a good writer. And then we like to reframe that as, you're not a good writer yet. And the more you write, the better of a writer you become. So it's like, who are you? Who do you want to become?
And right, because I really think this, one of the things that a lot of people ask me is that, what do you think that really sets you apart? And what do you think what is the gap that we see out there with people today? And what I see is that we've all grown up with a report card. And what I mean by the report card is this. Through school, everybody's telling us, whether we're, like you're supposed to go to special needs, you're not going to go to college. And along the way, we're all being reported on, and we're telling people whether they're good or they're bad. And we have the ability to make that decision to accept what they're saying or saying, I'm going to prove you wrong. One of the things that happened to me, Trevor, and I didn't find it out till the age of 60, was my mom was in my head. And she was constantly saying, it was rough, but she kept saying, you can be whoever you want to be. But one thing she did, she would take these books, these underdog books for sports. I thought I was going to be a sports writer, and who knows, maybe I still will be as I graduate from where I am now. But the bottom line is, she would take these little books and she would leave them on my bed, and I'd read them. And I was the underdog. I loved people that were the underdogs because I knew I was the underdog. But she did it time and time again. And what I didn't realize at the time, I didn't even know she did it till age of 60 when, she was in hospice and we had a conversation. And then I remembered it. She was changing my mindset.
Yeah.
And so when I take a look at people, I don't hire resumes. I hire people. What I try to do is I try to look and see what potential is in there. And because we all have so much potential. And why is it that you're being held back? What happened to you along the lines to do that? But the other part that comes with it, as you're talking to your listeners, and because they're dealing with people all the time, is that what really comes with it is that, we all have a gift, but they got to have a burning desire. Now,
I like that.
I believe in Think and Grow Rich. But not everybody comes with a burning desire. Some people have a burning desire that's hidden in them.
Yeah.
And to your people that, you're working in manufacturing, we can bring that out of people. Now, if they don't want it, you can't spend time on them, but there's an opportunity there. And so one of the things that I say leadership-wise is, what is the story that you're telling yourself? Because the biggest story we tell is the one we tell ourselves.
Yeah. And I'm resonating because that's been some of my challenges, Hugh, and I've seen other people with it as well, is that they do see the potential in others. So how do you tell? Like I think, if you can see the potential in others, and I kind of say, oh no, this person that they're definitely capable of being in in the next position here. And when we do this in manufacturing, we're under duress to get great supervisors and team leaders and
Yeah.
managers. So we see that, and when we see the potential, the hidden gifts. But then, how do you really gauge? Do they have that mentality of what they could be? And when do you let go of trying to convince them of that? I think that's where sometimes I struggle.
Yeah, and I agree. It's one of the things that I struggled with as well, because I just feel it for people. And I've had to, I say coach them out or coach them up or coach them out. But the first person I had to work on was me.
Mm,
I had to start telling myself different stories. Because at the end of the day, if all the listeners that are out there are not telling themselves the right stories, how are you going to do it for the other people? With me, I do have a pretty good feel for people. Usually I sit down with them and have a conversation, and you get a feel for somebody. And, they tell you in HR never to go with the gut. Well, I've gone with the gut a lot. I probably wouldn't pass it through HR, but I can tell you how many times HR has blown me away because I didn't have all the credentials. But the bottom line is you get a feel for people. When you're building a team, it's no difference than building a sandlot team or a team of soccer players or whatever it may be. The biggest thing we need to do is that if you got to make sure you're believing in your company and what you're trying to accomplish, the conversations I typically have, Trevor, is about people and where is it that they want to go.
so the tip that I'm getting out of this, Hugh, is one, you got to be able to work on yourself.
Yeah.
But maybe one of the missing parts that maybe sometimes I missed, maybe still do today, is sharing a little bit more with that person you see growth and the potential about your own story, right? That whole vulnerability of like just saying, I see this in you. And then here's a little bit of like where I kind of struggle a little bit. And then the other one's from your mother. I think if you combine these two, this may be the answer of asking them the question of like, where do you see yourself? And it's not where do you see yourself in 5 years? That's not a good, I don't like that question. I like more just the fact of like, what do you see in yourself? And
And what
just
do you
kind of
like?
like having that whole concept of where do you want to go?
Yeah. I mean, the conversations I typically have and with people is that, I ask them the question. I take them through like five or six things. The first thing is that, what type of desire do you have? What is it that you want? What really, what is really important to you? Second, with mine, because I take them through the sales process, is that, I always talk about a burning desire. Where are you today and where is it that you really want to go? And
Mm-hmm.
the bottom line is, I want to know what that is so I can help you get there. And then the other thing is that, I have them, they have to invest in themselves. And if they invest in themselves, then I'll invest in them. But the other part that I think really does fit for manufacturing and for what, the teams that you guys are developing is that you have to be a part, you have to hire people that want to be a part of something that's bigger than themselves.
Mm,
And when you have those conversations, you can tell if somebody's just, hey, I'm just there for the job. I'm just coming in eight to
yep.
five or whatever it is. But when you find people that want to be a part of something bigger than themselves, then the conversation I have is that, okay, well, we don't do this as one person. We do this as a team, and the team helps the team. And so, you're going to have to really have conversations with the team members on a regular basis because we're going to build this thing out together. My mentor used to say, you put a bunch of batteries together and you hook them up, now you got something. But if you don't, and that's what I've been able to accomplish. The other
Yeah,
thing
so
that I've done is, and the challenge I've always had is how do you connect the company's goals with the goal of the team?
mm.
And sometimes that's the biggest challenge I have because the
So
people,
is that hiring the right person into, because you've done this 10 times. So is that bringing the right person to that particular culture?
yeah, and I hire personalities, yes, I hire personalities. And, yes, it's trying to bring the right person in. Sometimes the one that you think is going to be the most successful is not, because they know more. They know more than me. And believe me, there's a lot of people that know more than me. But if you know what I mean, they know more than me, and they don't think that what I'm doing, because what I'm doing doesn't really fit in anybody's box. But the other thing is I got to show them that I care. I mean, we talk about loving and caring. My team knows that. And loving and caring sometimes is coaching them up or coaching them out,
Mm.
but helping them go to a place that maybe they're going to be successful with down the line. The other thing is that I'm really big. So I'm in the HVAC, the plumbing industry. I've been there for years. I'm big at building that industry out. So it's so much bigger than me. And what I realized is that in our case, in salespeople, they usually have them sell non-competes. I took the non-competes away. And I
Yeah,
said, we're not going to have you sign a non-compete, because here's the deal. I'm going to help you get to where you want to go. The bottom line is, if we can't do that for you, if there's not a place here, I want you to go to a place where you can succeed. And if that's within our industry, I think it's great, because I'm trying to build the industry out.
and I think that this is changing too in the industry of these non-competes, because even in Canada they're talking about not even making it legal anymore. It was hilarious. There's a apartment complex, and when you sign the lease in there, they had to that you couldn't leave a bad review. So it's like, if that's not a good red flag, that they got to put that in the contract. Like, that's kind of the opposite you're talking about. Do you really need a non-compete? If you've hired the right people and you're having those deeper conversations, and it's not transactional,
Yeah,
and if that point the person needs to be there at that point, then that's going to make sense. And just this whole, it changes the relationship, right? When you got to
yeah.
start putting in conditions into a contract, and that's transactional. I mean, that's the opposite of
It's
what you're
so
preaching.
transactional. And what I can, I get so excited about this, and I get excited to talk to your listeners, because we're the ones that can really make a difference in this world. Um, if we're making it transactional, that's what you're going to get. And so, our big thing in our company is that we hire people in our distribution center, and then, one of the big guys comes in and pays them twice as much, and, we train them, and then they go somewhere else. Now, that's something on our team that we need to make sure that we're going to be investing at higher levels, and making sure we're paying what needs to be paid for. But I think if you start to create what I call a family type environment, people won't run away for a nickel, and they're not going to run away for a dime. And if you're going to put yourself in there and you figure out ways to help move them through the system and help them go to places that maybe they didn't even think they could go. I mean, if they're going to go to one of the big guys, they're probably going to be treated
Yeah.
very much like that.
I
And
like what
that's
you
the
said.
opportunity that we all have.
I like what you said in the fact of, if you're coming from a place of care, when you do that, you get more permission on what the person will receive from you. And sometimes it's like we think we have good intentions. And there's moments where I thought, okay, yeah, I'm being a good leader and I'm kind of pushing this person. But maybe I just sometimes didn't take enough time to kind of make it less transactional and more personal. Like, does this person really believe that I care about them? Because that is the foundation of trust, right? Do you care about me? Because if you don't care about me, I don't even know how I can trust you. So if you're giving me insights on questions about my career or how I can get, have more opportunities here, it's like, I don't even know if you care about me. So how could I make decisions, to do that forward? And, really, you've really taught me a lot, Hugh, just in getting to know you the last few years, of just relationships, and you're a wonderful connector. And I was just like, oh man, like, and then just insights you had on, like, I see you building relationships, you meet new people, and just kind of watching you. And then you kind of gave a safe space for me to ask you some questions, because it's kind of like, man,
Well,
like, this guy's a rock star, and he's hesitating. And all I asked you was, what are you hesitating for? Because, like, I'm looking like you got so much more experience than I do in some areas. And it's like, man, this guy's a star.
you know what we call that? We call it the terror barrier. And so all of us in life, we go through the same thing. So I'm a big conditional mind. Those are the five senses that everything's getting hit with us. But then the unconditional mind, that's the report. I call it the report card. That's everything that we've stored inside of us. But when we make a decision and the conditional mind decides, okay, I'm going to go for something, and we talk about it, but the unconditional mind saying, hey, I'm over here. You remember the fight or flight behavior? The better thing for us to do is to take the flight. Let's go
Yeah.
sit in that corner. And that's the safe space. And yet that's the worst space that we can go. You caught me at
A lot of those cavemen got eaten by tigers.
that.
So in our DNA, we didn't get as much fight because maybe some of those didn't survive. And our default sometimes is to flight, maybe more often than not. And that's maybe where we need each other, right?
Well, and you were sitting with me at that table in Orlando, Florida, and you said that to me, and I looked at you, and I think you thought, well, I might have offended him, and it was like, no, you just hit it right. You just hit me right through the eyes. And really, when I say the terror barrier, the barrier is the wall.
Mm,
It's when we know that we're so passionate about something that it needs to be done. Sometimes it takes a Trevor Blondell to, that you've only met a couple of times to say, hey, what's holding you up?
yeah.
What's holding you back?
Yeah.
You break through the wall. And once you break through that, it's an amazing thing. But guess what? You start it all over again,
Mm.
because now all of a sudden you're going to go to that next level.
It keeps on
But
evolving.
every person's going through that. There's too many people that are sitting there with the terror barrier in the safe spot. If we develop teams and develop teams within manufacturing or sales or whatever it may be, what happens is incredible. So what I didn't tell your listeners is this, is that the last one I had is Everflow Supplies. And I love Everflow Supplies. And my CEO came to me. It was a New Jersey, New York company. They want me to take them across the United States. And he was like, all right, man, I'm taking this baby on. But I had this vision of what I wanted to do, of hiring people that were outside of the industry, that it was their personality, and maybe they were stuck, and I was going to help them get to that next place.
Love that.
In 3.5 years, I say I a lot of times, and believe me, it wasn't I, it was we. I hired all these people. I put training in 5 days a week when COVID happened. And then after that, supply chain happened. And we took this company in 3.5 years from a $65 million company to $155 million in 3 years. In 3 years. And
Fantastic.
with a guy that was supposed to go to special needs, but I did it with the exact same model that I built out in college when I started my fraternity. And I said I wanted to be president, and I had this vision, and nobody wanted me to be president because I transferred in from a junior college. And I'm like, okay, I'll start my own.
Interesting.
In a year and a half, what I realized is it wasn't about me. It was about the people I was bringing in. And that there was all these other people that wouldn't let them in the other fraternities because, they didn't fit their mold. And I was like, we don't have a mold. And I went and got a card. I went knocking on doors. And in 1 year, we were twice the size of any fraternity on that campus. And my big thing with them was, listen, I'm only going to be here 2 years.
Hmm.
So if I have to step down my next year and give you an opportunity to do the things that you want to do, the bottom line is figure out what it is that you want. Let
Mm.
me help you get there. And then I did the Greek Week games, and I brought the entire university together, same way. And if you go on my LinkedIn, you see my goofy LinkedIn post on a tricycle. That was me with all those people behind. I put that thing together. It's the first time they'd ever have it. And we had these games, and it was just a lot of fun.
You've been a connector since you've been 10 years old, and I love the whole path, right? Of kind of, yes, you did that at 10 and you're doing this at your fraternity, but then you kept on going a level deeper, right? Like through your whole career. And I think that's kind of a great lesson here, is that we got to hire people, we got to work with people, and we got to continue to help each other go to that next step. And seeing, like, is it something that's holding them back, something in their mindset? What do I need to ask them? And it's not telling, it's having that conversation. And that's really what I see you've done. So yeah, I just appreciate our friendship, Hugh, and your mindset, and what I think this helped, in your health, and how you struggle, through health issues, but you have such a great mindset. And it's like, I hear you're not feeling well, I know you're going to make it. Like,
Yeah,
you're Hugh
no,
Hornsby, and he's got the mindset of anybody who has that. So what do you want, as we wrap up here, what do you want to leave our listeners with today, Hugh?
well, I wanted to ask you a quick question.
Ooh.
what is something that you feel like that they need, or a question you can ask me that maybe I can somewhat help them with?
I think it's just like, when they're going to, as listeners, we stop, we get to the plant, we kind of walk into the plant. There's a lot going on. And then they're going to see the people, but then the transactions are going to come up. So when they think of Hugh and it's like, I don't want it to be a transaction, what do you want them to go through their minds to help them say, you know what, I just need to stop a little bit here, ask a couple more
So
questions.
this is what I know as a fact, that most people stop learning at the age of 35. And so we pre-programmed our minds are programmed a certain way at the age of 35. People stop investing in themselves, reading books and putting themselves around the right people. The bottom line is you can reprogram the way that you think today at the age of 66. And it doesn't take cancer for you to go through that to make that happen. The bottom line is invest in yourself. Figure out and then ask yourself, what is it that drives you? What is it that gets you up in the morning? And then I've got a piece of advice that I would say, please do this because this changed my life. The bottom line is the way we go to bed at night makes a huge difference on how we get up in the morning. If you're a plant manager or you're wherever you are in this line, if you're going to bed and you're worrying about all the things that happened during that day, and you're not doing a gratitude check, a 10-minute gratitude check, this is what I suggest. Do your gratitude and thank everybody that's there, maybe even some of the people that got in your way, for the day, but just, say thank you. And then think about the 5 things that you're going to do the next morning that you get really excited about, and then go to bed. And what happens there is instead of you going to that negative place, you're now thinking about all the positive. And then when you get up in the morning, do the same thing. Same gratitude. I download it off of Audible. It's a 10-minute deal, and I do it every morning. I do it every night, and sometimes I do it in the middle of the day. But what it really does, and that first meeting I have in the morning, and I'm going through cancer radiation right now. I'm so excited to get there to have that done. It really does get you focused, and it puts you in a different mindset. And instead of doing what most people do, where now you're thinking about all the stuff you didn't do and all the stuff you have to do, instead you're thinking about all the positive stuff. And guess what happens? Positive creates positive.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing that I can share with all of you. And just realize that work on that story that you're telling yourself. Because if you look at the military, the biggest thing they talk about with the Navy, with the SEALs, is the ones that were failing. They had to go back in and have that conversation with them and say, go back and look at what you've done. Look at everything you've done to accomplish what you've done, your family, and everything else, and start to look at that and look at how hard it was and look at what you got beyond to do that and start telling that story. And then do this. Once you start telling yourself a different story, you work with your team to help them do the exact same and watch what happens.
That's the compound. I love it, Hugh. Thanks so much for coming on. And one of the things I like to say to myself too, and I do a similar practice with the gratitude, is that if you're really sitting in a place of like, instead of I have to and I get to, and you got some of that gratitude, it's hard to be stressed and angry. Because it just kind of, it's one of the best, for me, the best counterparts.
Do you know that it's impossible to show gratitude and be angry? You can't do both. Did you know that?
Yes. So that's
you and I are so aligned.
Yeah, we're so aligned in that. And I hope our listeners can have that better day. And I'm just excited for your future self, Hugh, and continue.
Hey, I wouldn't be standing up here if it wasn't for you, Trevor Wandeel. You're such a great friend of mine, and I want to say thank you for that.
Right on. Well, thanks for coming on the show, being vulnerable and sharing with all our listeners today. You're a good man. Thanks so much.
And thanks to everybody out there. And guess what? We do have the ability to change this world one person at a time.
Hey folks, appreciate you taking the time to join us today. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with someone. Haven't subscribed yet? Do it now. Remember, if you want results, the key is increasing your awareness of how you show up.